person who joins us is from Canada, and Hussein has written a book. My hypothesis is that we're going to talk about the dark art of life mastery.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest is a founder, entrepreneur, and strategist who has spent over 2 decades turning chaos into clarity. He's the CEO of Next Decentrum, the author of The Dark Art of Life Mastery, and someone who measures success not by money or titles. Please welcome Hussein Hallak.
I was growing up in Damascus, Syria, the oldest capital in the world. We're having conversations about world politics. That's how you got the news, actually.
Welcome to another episode of the IgnitedNeurons Podcast. Today, my hypothesis is that we're going to talk about the dark art of life mastery. The person who joins us is from Canada, and Hussein has written a book that's called The Dark Art of Life Mastery. And so I thought it'll be a great idea for us to explore this topic because our listeners are always interested in personal growth. Welcome to the conversation, Hussein.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely talk about why you've used the word the dark art. We'll come to that. But to push us into the deep end as soon as we kick off the podcast, the first question that we start our conversation with, Hussein, is that if that 8-year-old little boy, wherever that little boy Hussein was growing up at 8 years old, if that boy were to come to and meet you right now, what kind of a conversation will emerge between the two of you?
Oh, 8-year-old. I'm wondering what I'm doing at 8-year-old. I would probably ask about what do I think about my Lego collection because I used to love Lego, and I used to kind of love to hear conversations of adults. So I didn't talk a lot when I was 8-year-old. I become more talkative, I think, after. But I used to listen a lot to my uncle and the kind of the old men of the family talking to each other. I loved being around them. I don't know why, but I loved all kind of adult conversations. So I would be asking, or maybe sometimes trying to participate, trying to share my opinion. So that's what I would say. But I would never, ever imagine that I would be this old. And I would probably think, this is a very old dude.
Fascinating. And if I were to dig a little deeper, where were you when you were 8 years old? Like, give me like a view into that 8-year-old's life.
I was growing up in Damascus, Syria, the oldest capital in the world. I was at 8-year-olds. I was just starting, or I was probably third grade. I would be because I was ahead 1 year in the private school that brought Armenians and Syrians together. It's an Armenian school. So my parents put me there because they wanted English language for me to train on it, and it was kind of the most, I would say, the highest school that they could actually afford to put me in, and they wanted the best education. And I think I was fascinated with Game Boy. I saw like a lot of people buying these Game Boys and playing with them, and I was fascinated with that, and I just wanted one. And I remember talking to my mom and telling her, "Can I get one?" And she said, "Yeah, of course you can get one. If you graduate from elementary school, the first to be the first in that school." And I did. 2 years or 3 years later, I graduated first at my school, and my mom bought me one of the most amazing Game Boys that I could. It looked like a robot thing, and it cost her 2 months' salary, and my father was furious that she did.
That's fascinating because every time I ask this question, such deep memories emerge for the guests, but also for the listeners. And you spoke about hearing conversations of adults and maybe also thinking about participating. What was intriguing or what was fascinating to that 8-year-old boy that he wanted to listen to these adult conversations? Because to me, it'll also feel like I don't want to get bored by these conversations. So let me do my own thing.
Well, if you remember, at that time, there wasn't a lot of TV. You didn't have social media. All you had is I remember like 1 hour of TV, series that we would watch. In fact, at 8-year-old, I think TV was still black and white, probably, for us in Syria. And the only entertainment is either playing with kids or what people are talking about. And my parents and especially my uncle were having conversations about world politics. That's how you got the news, actually. Because they were discussing, my uncle was very entrenched in politics. He's actually one of the people that he's kind of like the Che Guevara of the Arab world. I actually carry his name that was named after him, and he participated in every colonial or every revolution against the colonial power in every state in the Arab world. Like, I think there were like 20 or 22 or 23 of them, and he had pictures with everyone. Now, I didn't know all of that, but when he came and visited, a lot of interesting people would come around, and those were the conversations. So it was like learning about these things. Like, you would hear names of countries, you would hear, people and what's their motivations or what's happening. These things you never hear anywhere else. So for me, I was learning. Plus, whenever I play with other kids, I get bullied. So this with adults, I was and my uncle and my parents always treated me with not with kids, kind of, like, go away or go play with other kids. My uncle would welcome me, would sit me among them. I was the oldest, and I was the oldest. My grandfather had 8 kids. 6 of them were women, girls, and 2 boys. And my uncle was the oldest, but he didn't have any kids. So I was the oldest, kind of the lineage of the family. So I was treated with a little bit of respect or celebration. So I loved that. I loved to be the center of attention, and they would kind of, celebrate me, and everybody would be nice to me because they're kind of trying to be nice to my uncle. So I loved that attention, and I didn't experience it with other kids. Other kids they didn't care about me, and they would bully me. I was like, okay, I prefer to be around these people who celebrate me and think I'm a big deal. I didn't understand why. Obviously, when I'm older, I understood why, but I enjoyed it.
So fascinating how our minds work, and it's easier when you're grown up and you can connect those dots backwards. So I understand this journey from Syria to now you're in Canada would have had its own twists and turns, and it never is a linear journey. But what was it growing up, and then what made you kind of end up in Canada? Like, give me like a brief
Wow.
or something that yeah that you feel like that was like the turning point in my
That
existence.
was a winding point, in a winding journey, I would say. I remember being, I think, in my second year of university and wanting to go to Canada just because I wanted to get out of Syria anyway. Throughout my life, everything I watched, I was fascinated with movies, fascinated with music, and the cultural hub, if you wish, the center where everything emanated from was the US, right? America. So I knew more about New York probably than I knew about Damascus. Aside from me walking, I would say, like, because remember, at that time, there was no internet. So all you received is from the media, and the media, you would see those movies, and I loved movies. And there wasn't like that much, I would say, media industry coming out of Syria. There was, of course, series, and there were actors, but the massive production and the amount of production was all coming from the US. So I thought I saw more of New York than I saw of Damascus, because remember, I was a kid, so I wouldn't go around, and see Damascus and visited everything. So I knew uh, kind of the famous buildings in New York. I knew LA, and I was fascinated. I wanted to go there. I knew about jazz, blues. I loved Michael Jackson. So I wanted to be there so badly. Canada at the time, I didn't know anything about Canada, but I remember I don't remember how it came up, but the possibility of traveling to Canada and studying there, I'm like, yes, I want to go. So that's the first time that I thought of Canada, when I was like second year. But it never happened. I studied in Syria. I ended up working in the creative industry as a means to generating kind of some income for me. And while I was studying engineering, I studied electronic engineering, and by the time I graduated, I already had a partnership with someone doing a company. And the second company that I did was a gaming company, an online gaming company. We built websites like games. And the first website we built was for the Disney of the Middle East. The company was called Spacetoon. It was one of the largest kids media company in that region. And we built their website. They loved it so much. They acqui-hired all of our company, gave me a position in Dubai. And that was my ticket out. Even though I had a contract with another company to sell computers, I was like, this is it. I get a position here, and I traveled there, and that was my first kind of ticket out of Syria. And then from there, after 11 years, me and my wife and our kids, we immigrated to Canada. In 2014, landed in Vancouver. So that's kind of the journey that led me there. But it was a very, very winding journey. And I would never expect that I would end up in such a beautiful city like Vancouver. If you would ask me, I think at any point in my life until I was here, it was very, very hard to imagine.
Yeah. The story that you're sharing, it hits home in so many ways because I mean, I with my wife and kids came to Australia only a few years ago. So 2023 is when we landed here, and so I understand like how that is like a massive shift, and carrying your family with you to almost like a land unknown is a journey of its own. And then from that moment to now 11 years in Canada, this idea about a personal mastery and then the dark art of life mastery, like where did that emerge from?
Well, throughout my life, I think one of the key things that I gone through is the idea of reading about how to become better and learning how to become better as I lived life. In the sense that, different than all of my peers, let's say around the world, you grow up, you go to university, and that's kind of the start of your career.
Hmm.
You go to university, that's, let's say, you learn, and then you work in that field or a field adjacent, and then you build your career so that, you reach a point where you earn more. Life rewards you, let's say, or the market rewards you. And there is no such thing while I was growing up in Syria. Growing up in Syria, everything that I ever wanted, I didn't have access to, in the sense that I wanted to be in music. There's no point. I mean, outside of LA or New York or London, probably, there's no chance that you will become big in music, as in like you see a path to that, especially in Western music. I was in an Arab country. There's no path. I was fascinated with processors in my engineering. I studied integrated circuits. The only factories that were like, Intel had a factory in the US and one in Israel, and there was a factory, I think, for AMD in the US as well. That's it. Unless you're in the US, you're never going to work in that field that I was fascinated with. I was so fascinated with it that my pastime, when we got internet in 1998, my pastime was reading the processor specification, the Intel processor specification at the time, Xeon, off the Intel website. That was my pastime. That's how much of a geek I am. What else? I worked in the graphic, like as a graphic designer, and I didn't work in any agency. And at that time as well, there's no freelance, freelancer, these websites where you can actually generate business, all of that didn't exist. And you grew and you become, let's say, you grow as a career, become a creative director or art director and so on, by working for a massive agency. And most of the people who worked there graduated from art school, communication, these kind of things. So anything that I wanted, anything that I was fascinated with, I had no path to. So the way I did it is I did what I could, and whatever I wanted to master, I would pick up a book and do it, and try and see what I can do about it. And at the time, it was a means of survival. It wasn't like way that I was intelligent or like, this is the path to mastery. I didn't know any better. This is what was possible for me, and I made the choices within what's possible in the moment. In fact, I always felt that I was missing something. Like my peers were progressing in their creative career, and I would print this card and I would put creative director, and they would laugh at me. My friend, I remember a dear friend of mine who was in the creative industry, and would say, "How do you call yourself a creative director?" I said, "Well, I just printed it on the card." It's like, no, you have to be in an agency and you have to graduate from a creative designer to a senior creative designer to an art director. He had this path. I was like,
Mm.
I have no access to this, but I will see what I can do. So everything that I did was a choice that is available in the moment that I took advantage of. And looking backwards or looking back at it, when I think around 2009, 2010, I owned my progress. I owned that all of these things led to where I am. And I started actually working with some of the largest creative agencies in the world, largest branding agencies, the largest brands, some of the most well known. And I saw that people looked at me and saw me bigger than I saw myself. And I started to own that. And that's when I started to realize, oh, this is the path to mastery, which is making choices in the moment. And that led, I didn't know that I'm going to write this book. And I didn't articulate it that way until when COVID came around and I decided to write a book that combines all of the wisdom and all of the knowledge and all of the experience that I put together so I can mentor my kids, my future generations, other entrepreneurs. And so it came to this book, which gave me this.
Amazing. So many, so many things that I want to kind of double click on. So you said somewhere that you made choices within what you had. And where I'm coming from here, Hussein, is that there might be others who are listening to this right now where they feel that I don't have any choices. I don't know where to go. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling helpless. I'm feeling that this is what life's all about. And so it seems from our conversation that we have maybe taken a few extra steps forward.
Yes.
And so if you were to now carry someone from where they are right now to where we think they can be, what does this mean? Make choices within what you had.
Yeah, absolutely. See, a lot of times I felt I was lost probably most of, like for every moment that I felt I'm on the path, there are like, 100 moments that I felt lost and I had no clue what I was doing. So I can definitely relate to that. I would say um, what helped me is because I needed to deliver. So I had a family. There was no chance that I could, let's say, give up. Now that doesn't mean I didn't give up and I didn't think of giving up. Or I thought of giving up probably every day once, at least. But number one, I carried this name of my uncle, and everybody had high expectations of me. So um, I kind of had to figure it out. So, and because I didn't have a big goal in the sense that nothing that I did, like when I actually worked as a creative designer, there was never a chance of like one day I'll become a creative director and I'll lead my agency. I had no aspirations like that. All I had in front of me is like, you know what, can I find work today? And if I couldn't find work today, I wake up the other day, can I find work today and that is better? Or so it's mostly I looked at the current moment and said, what can I do with what I have right now? And I did it. So if I could design a business card and print it and give it to someone and try to get business, that's what I would do. If I could, search around. Sometimes I couldn't do anything, so I go attend a movie to get inspired. So I made choices that were possible in the moment by living in the moment. A lot of times, what I notice, and I noticed it in myself, and I noticed it in hundreds of entrepreneurs that I worked with, that what we do is our minds are stuck in what we want to happen 10 months down the line, a year, 10 years down the line. This is where our minds are stuck and we can't comprehend the current moment. I'll give you an example. Let's say this book, I'm writing this book. So while writing this book, if my mind was stuck into, what will the book be like when it's complete? How can I publish it? Who's going to help me publish it? How will people buy it? All of those. I will not do anything in the moment. I will not write a word because I will be stuck in that. And there's no solution in the future because I'm not living in the future. The only solution I can make is in the moment. And what that looked like is, let me write one word. And in fact, I actually did that when I landed in Vancouver. When I landed in Vancouver, 6 months, I was searching for a job. I applied to 200 opportunities, and I got one lousy interview for a sales. I remember like a sales job. Nothing wrong with sales, but a sales for a software company. And I had 20 years experience. I had my creative agencies. And when I arrived in Vancouver, and I've worked with some of the largest brands, some of the top name agencies in the world, Landor, Siegel and Gale, the best names in ever. And everybody told me, well, you don't have Canadian experience. Well, what can I do with that? I can't change that. So here I am stuck 6 months, running out of money, 200 applications. Like, what can I do? And I did this framework, which I use all the time, which is I asked myself, if I had all the time and money in the world, what would I do? And the answer was, I would become a best-selling author. I would spend all my time, writing books and until I become one of the best-selling authors in the world. Because I respected authors a lot. I learned a lot from books. I said, okay, but I don't have all the time and money in the world. I barely have a few minutes because I would commute to downtown. We lived in West Van. So I would actually commute to downtown, do my job search, and I commute back. But I said, what do I have? Well, I have 20 minutes on the bus going down and 20 minutes going back. So why can't I write while I'm commuting there? Whatever is on my mind, whatever is from my experience, let me showcase my experience and I'll write. And I started writing articles. And at the time, 2014, LinkedIn has just started to allow content on its platform. So I would write articles and I would publish them on LinkedIn on the way to downtown. And on the way back, at the time, LinkedIn app would allow you to search and to add people without asking you to send a note. And there was no limit on adding people. So on the way back, I will search, let's say, investors. I will search entrepreneurs. And what I would do is it will list all of these entrepreneurs. I will add. And within 3 months, I added 6,000 people. At the time, I had 2,000 I started. So I added 6,000 people in Vancouver and Canada. And I wrote several articles on LinkedIn. And because I would add them on LinkedIn, they would go to my profile. They would see a complete profile, rich with positions, and they will see me writing. So I wasn't like searching for a job or anything. And I had 100 coffees as a result and 5 job offers without even asking for a job. So what did I do? I didn't, I wasn't stuck in the job I wanted. I wasn't stuck with, what would happen in several months. Where I was is, here's what I have as options today. I can add people and connect with people and ask for a coffee, and I can write articles in the little time that I have. And I executed based on the options that I had in front of me, instead of being stuck, well, I'm going to write a book someday when I have the time, when I have the energy, someday when all the things line up, when all the stars line up, when, everything falls into place, which never going to happen. So this is what I call this someday doctrine, which I recommend and preach highly against.
Someday doctrine. I'm going to make a note of that. Very there are so many lessons that people can actually put into practice like right now. And what you're saying is that if you're stuck and if you feel that you don't have all the resources in the world, what's the smallest choice you can make? What's the smallest? And LinkedIn today will not allow add to 200 people.
But it's still you can add 100 people.
Exactly.
You can also create, let's say, some posts and create some articles to attract people to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you doing to come out of that? I think where I'm seeing this, and I think a lot of visually, Hussein, if someone who's sensing that they're stuck, I think, and this comes back from my NLP training as well. So one idea that I want to kind of give them is just step out of that stuck space and move to another physical space, which you can give it a word, right? I might call it unstuck, or I might call it thriving, or I might call it abundant, whatever that word might be. And from that space, now you can network with people, is what you're saying, Hussein. You did. You can write articles. You can have 100 coffees. when I came to Australia, and so many things are like in parallel. I'm just like loving this conversation we're having. I went for lunches with strangers, and so I kept meeting someone, and the same restaurant. I opened my calendar that every Friday afternoon I'll have like lunch with two people, one at 10 a.m., then another one coffee and lunch at 12. Such fascinating conversations happen throughout those conversations. And those people are still connected with me, and we talk business, we talk work, we talk life, all of that. So your 100 coffees gave you 5 to 8 job interviews, job without even asking for it.
Yeah, job offers, not
Job
job
offers.
interviews.
Sorry.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
people just, I had 5 job offers from people that I met. Some of them, because obviously they see that. The other thing is that it's really not about doing those things. It's mostly about, in anything that you're doing, think of the smallest thing, because a lot of times we want to do bigger. We want to do the biggest thing. Like, I want to write a book. Okay, great. Can you write a page? Can you write 2 words? Can you come up with a title? Like, don't get stuck into the thing that you want to do that is bigger. Make it as small as possible so that it's easy to take. So, for example, you want to run a marathon, run 10 meters. So when you make them smaller, what ends up happening, it becomes so doable that it will be ridiculous not to do. And that is the problem. The problem is, when we think of the things that we want to do, they sound bigger. They usually always sound bigger, which is great. That's an objective. That's a goal you want to go after. And then what you need to do is, like, what can you do now in this moment? Because what ends up happening, if it's bigger, we'll say I'll do it tomorrow. I'll dedicate, 2 hours tomorrow, and then it never happens. So when you postpone, and guess what? We all do it. I do it all the time. When I have a big task, I find myself, I'll do it in 2 hours. I'll do it. I'll let me go get some sleep. I'm tired right now. I'll do it. But it's a habit where you actually, if you really want to progress, I look at my emails like, I have 200 emails. Well, answer 2. You don't have to answer the 200. We always think about completion and doing things completely and perfectly, to the point that we prevent ourselves from doing anything.
Yeah. And so, to our listeners, seek progress, not perfection.
Yes, that's a great way of saying it.
Love it. And this someday doctrine, everyone's in some way going through it, right? Whether someone who wants to lose weight, someone who wants to start a business, someone who wants to quit a job, someone who wants to start a family and have kids, and we all keep saying that there'll be a right. And even I'll simplify it further, and let's see what you feel about this. I will be happy when something happens.
Oh, yes.
How does one overcome that?
I've been like, I remember every time I did that, it was like I lost so much of life trying to pursue this someday approach, where I'll be happy once my company reaches that level, and once I sell it for this much, and once we reach that revenue. And listen, it's important to have great objectives, things you pursue. That is important. That's goal setting, that's having objectives, having a trajectory, something you reach out to. And that's great. However, you do not have to postpone joy and postpone happiness and until you get that. That's one. The second thing is, you need to ask yourself, those measurements of success and happiness, are they based on what you value, or are they based on what society has trained us, and what we've been trained by the media? Not that they're bad or anything, but for example, we read a lot about the success of these entrepreneurs. And we think, well, that's success. Look at the Ferrari that they have. Look at the position that they have. Look at the exit. Look at how much money. All of these things. And they may be great. And maybe you do want them. There's nothing wrong with that. But are you sure you want them? Or are you sure that this is something that you are conditioned to want? So when you ask yourself, what does really bring you joy? You need to allow the answers to come to you. I always... in my book, I write, like, screw answers. I say it in a different way. I don't know to what extent I'm allowed to say on your
You are allowed to
yes,
say whatever you want to.
I say fuck answers. Questions are the shit. So questions, what they do is they open our minds. we get stuck to answers and we say this is the answer, I have to make this company a success, we don't allow for other opportunities to happen. Sometimes you have to see that something you're working on is never going to work out and you need to move to something else, and you have to open your mind to that opportunity. What we do is we get stuck to an answer and we never progress to a different answer that might be even better and even grander, and it will open up the world for us. We do that with other entrepreneurs, where entrepreneurs, we say love the problem, not the solution. If you're stuck to a certain product and you think your product is the shit and it's like the most amazing product, you miss out on finding other opportunities to solve the problem in a better way, where you get to build better products. So what you need to do is first talk to your customers, ask them, find out if they are looking for a different solution than the one you have in mind. So if you truly want to live a better life, stick to the questions, stick to exploring, rather than trying to fit whatever your perception of whatever needs to happen into your life. If you stick to the questions like, what do I really want? What does really matter to me? And you ask yourself that every day and regularly, because who you are today is not the same person that was yesterday. And if you allow yourself to be this new person, to be anchored in the moment today, you get to reinvent yourself with the choices you make. And that is incredibly powerful, because imagine every day you get to reinvent yourself. Every moment you get to reinvent yourself, you get to live multiple lifetimes within one life. And that is what I would like for people to have. And that is what I've been gifted. In fact, I didn't think of it this way, by the way, until I think it was 2009 or 2010 when I looked back at my life and say, wow, I'm lucky that I've been able to live all these lives. And when people started, like, when did you manage to do all of this? Like when people hear that I started 22 companies, or that I've trained hundreds of entrepreneurs, that I've been involved in all of these things, they say, well, when did you get the time to do that? I was like, well, because every moment I make a choice, and if a ship is sinking, I jump ship. Like it's
Yeah.
as simple as that.
Yeah. I don't know. Double click on so many of these ideas. So
I love the double click thing.
yeah.
Right?
I mean, to me, it's like, you know, we can scratch the surface on everything, and that's great. But unless we like really double click, I don't think a shift's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think what you spoke about, that how we get this opportunity of reinventing ourselves every single day. Even this 1 hour is reinvention, Hussein, because you and I, when we get out of this conversation, we'll be slightly different, right? Slightly reinvented in certain ways. I learned something new. Fuck answers.
100%.
Questions are the. I think you said shit or shift. I was contemplating between the
Or
two.
the shit. The shit.
Yeah, or the shit.
That'd be the shift, of course. Questions
They can be the shit
do
also.
open up. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Reinvention, making these choices. And I love this idea from Viktor Frankl, right? That between the stimuli and how you respond to something is a choice. And that freedom to choose is completely ours. But I was talking to someone just yesterday, and I'm going to send this podcast to them because I'm hoping that you and I will break through the answer. Sometimes even making that small choice, Hussein, is such a struggle. I know that it's 3 a.m. and I should switch off my television. I should stop watching Netflix because I have work the next day. I know I'm eating this tub of ice cream. I should stop because I'm on a path of losing weight. I know I hate my job. It's not the right job for me. It's a toxic culture, but I'm afraid to do anything else because I feel like that gives me certainty. And so what I was talking to them was that sometimes our values don't serve us right. And so they tell us, Utkarsh, you want safety, stay in the job. Don't try and take too many risks. So for that person who's listening to both of us, still unable to make a shift, how do you push them forward? How do you ask them to like take that small step? Because to me and you, it seems like that's fucking simple, man. Why can't you take a step?
I love this question because I'll answer it in the way I would always answer something like this, a real answer. The real answer is you are making a choice, you're just not owning it. And when you actually own that choice, you get used to the idea of it is your choice. So what do I mean by that? Let's say I'm watching Netflix. I do that all the time. I have work to do, but I want to watch Netflix. And instead of being there watching Netflix and say, I should do something else, I own the choice. No, fucking, I'm watching Netflix. I don't give a shit. I'm now choosing to watch Netflix. And what happens is, in that mind shift of owning my choice, I am owning the responsibility of it. Because what's happening is we're escaping responsibility. It's like, I'm not, it's not my choice. It's like what I can or I can't do it. Like you're saying, I can't change the job. So it's not my choice. No, it is my choice to stay in that job because I do want safety. And that's perfectly fine. We spend a lot of time putting, I would say, putting value judgments over our choices. And our choices are simply just choices. And if you understand that with every moment you get to make a different choice and you own your choices, then the world starts shifting from a world that is imposed on you to a world where you own the choice. So I'll go back to when I was here in Vancouver. I could have said, you know what, it's not up to me. I tried for 6 months and I couldn't get a job. What can I do? I did my part. It's now the Canadian market, part to do. I did my part. But I own the choice. I chose to come to Canada. I chose to apply to those jobs, and these are the results I got. Then I asked myself, what is my next choice? Because I own these choices and I perceive them as choices, I'm in control. I'm not in control of the results. I'm in control of my choice. So I could choose to stop, or I could choose to continue, or I can choose to continue in a different way. So when you do that, and you get used to small choices, like from the cologne you put to how you take care of your body, to the food you eat. When I eat McDonald's, I don't feel guilty. Well, today I don't eat McDonald's. I'm boycotting it. But uh, if I choose to eat McDonald's, I enjoy the fucking McDonald's. I'm not blaming myself. I should eat something healthy. No, I'm eating McDonald's and I'm enjoying McDonald's. And I enjoy that choice. And then when I choose something else, when I haven't the choice again, since I own the choice and it is my choice, I am empowered to make whatever choice I can do. And I actually make the choice that I want. And it's those choices again and again, because all of our lives, what we're trained to is that there is the choice and everything else is what life chooses for us. So for example, we think of a choice, when we think of choice, we think choosing a career. So it's a
Mm.
choice that will impact us for 10 years. So we don't think of everyday decisions as choices. We don't think of, let's say, even small things like what we read or where we spend our time or listening to this podcast, or whether you act on this podcast and, let's say, hear something and act on it or forget about it. We don't think of those as choices. We think of them as, it's just life. But when we start realizing that everything in life is a choice, and even small choices, we treat them with just responsibility. We don't have to make them bigger than they are. It's my responsibility. If I bought something and it turned out to be not good, then what does it mean to own the responsibility? What it means that the next time I'm going to choose based on certain parameters that I didn't acknowledge the first time. So when you do that, you train yourself to make better choices because you are owning the choices that you have. It's just like playing basketball. You throw the ball into the hoop, and you don't say, "Well, it's luck. I didn't know." No, I threw it. I wasn't trained. If I want to get it, I make the choice to throw it again, and I make the choice to throw it better. And I analyze what I chose the first time and the second time. I don't wait until the championship to throw the hoop. I'm always throwing hoops. So choices are about always making choices. The more choices you make, and the more choices you make consciously, and the more choices you make with accountability, the better you are at making choices. That's as simple as it goes.
As simple as that. Yeah, I'm just processing everything because so what we are coming down to is that everything, this conversation that you and I are having, it's a choice. We both showed up. We both showed up to this link. It's a choice. We decided to record it and reach out to each other. That was also a choice.
Yeah,
And so
what I say right
everything,
now is a choice. How serious of the question is a choice. And what that means is that, like you see it all the time. People have a conversation, say, I didn't mean it. I didn't, it's like, no, I take ownership. And what happens is you grow as a person. You grow up, you're not a kid anymore. When you're a kid, you don't know what choices are. You're still growing. You can't control your brain. You don't know anything of the world. But when you're an adult, you own your choices. That's how you grow up. That's how you grow. You grow as a person. That's the growth mindset. It needs ownership. It needs that accountability. And if you don't do it, you're never gonna be better at this life game.
Yeah. And if you're okay with that, then maybe make choices that are not based on that intentionality that that consciousness that you and I are speaking about. But then what's the point, right? To me, like it's as simple as this: that this human life is a freaking gift, and if we don't live it to the best of our abilities, if we don't find meaning, find growth, find whatever we want to choose to be, if we don't find joy in that, then what's the whole point of this game?
I think of it in a different way, and I do respect what you said. I think of it like a game. I'm a gamer. I play games a lot. Whenever I get the chance, whenever my life partner is not at home, as in telling me, "Go work, make us some money." Yeah, let's run it. Let's run it to my PS5.
Hmm.
No, she's awesome. She let me play. So what I would do, but it's funnier to say it this way. So I would say it's if you think about it like a game, you make a choice in a game and you get killed along the way. So you go to play it again and you play it again, and that's how you learn. And that's how life goes. We put so much over something. Let's say I go into this conversation. That's why I love having conversations, because conversations are very educational about us as human beings. I say something and I regret it, or I say something and I stumble. What we do usually, and I used to do that myself as well, we get stuck into, I shouldn't have said, I could have done it, and now we're not in the moment, and we're all in our heads trying to analyze. And why do we do that? Thousands of years ago, tens of thousands, 20,000, 100,000, while how our brains evolved, because evolution takes a long, long time. We evolved to live in tribes, and it was very, very important that we remain among that tribe, because that meant safety, that meant food, that meant, our families taken care of, all of that. And if we say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, we get kicked out, and that meant death. We have to face the saber-toothed tiger or whatever the elements are on our own, and we won't survive, probably, most likely. So right now, any mistake, any bad feedback, anything that happens, our brain doesn't have the capacity to perceive it in any other way than a threat on our lives. So we treat it like that. And if you notice it among yourself. Notice how when somebody says, you did something wrong, or gives you feedback, or you say something and is not received the right way, notice what happens with you, and notice your defenses, and notice how you want just, we seek the approval and and we seek people to like us who don't have any presence in our lives and don't mean anything to us. I mean, we spend our lives trying to look good on Instagram, build up a life and build up a facade, and we miss on the most important things in life. Why do we do that? Because this is what our brain is geared towards. So you need management of those feelings, not to eliminate them. They will never go away. You'll always have that fear. What you need to channel it. If I made a mistake in this conversation, what I will do is I will jump in and say, okay, I'm sorry. And I take accountability. I made that choice. But now it's a different moment. I'll make a different choice, which is to apologize, to acknowledge, to fix it. And when you do that, it's better. Now, it may not work out. Like, that person may not accept your apology, but you've done what you can. And that is all that life asks of you, is that you do what you can, is that you bring all of you to the next moment, and you bring all of you to the moment after that, and you bring all of you to the moment after that. Whatever that means, wherever you are, whatever that... You might not be in your full 100%. You might be in 80% or 50%. But bring that to that moment, be genuine, and make that choice. You will learn and grow. Because when you're postponing that choice, when you have the opportunity to apologize and acknowledge and take responsibility for what you've done, and you don't, that's also a choice. But we don't perceive it that way. In our minds, we postpone it. But life doesn't postpone anything. It's a choice.
It's a choice. Love it. I love everything about this idea. And I think my nudge to the listeners is pause this podcast or come back to it again, maybe in a few hours or a few days, and think about what are some of the choices that you're making right now that will take you to a certain default future. And if you could, based on the conversation that Hussein and I had, if you could change and own those choices and maybe make different choices. I'm not even going to say better choices, make different choices in service of that future self, then where would you want to go? But as we're talking about that, Hussein, imagine a few decades from now, as we get to the end of the conversation, that 80-year-old, 80-year-old Hussein, if that Hussein were to come to you right now and had one piece of advice for you, what would that 80-year-old Hussein tell you to do?
Live wilder. Go even more out of your way, I would say. uh, I am always exploring, and I want to comment on what you said. Like, I love that you said it's better choices. There is no such thing as a better choice. There is only a different choice or a choice you make in the moment. That's a choice. What makes it better? Because we think we always have to make better, and life today needs to be better than yesterday, and that may not be possible because it's not up to you. You make, again, if we come back to the basketball example, you can have if you look at, let's say, Michael Jordan, let's say, the best athlete in the world, and he still missed 70% of the shots he took. And some of these shots were championship shots, and you should have said, look, he's Michael Jordan. He should have gotten that in.
Correct.
It's not up to you. What's up to you is to make the choice to throw, is to make the choice to take a chance on yourself, is to make the choice to take the step forward. And the rest is up to life. You may take that chance and break your leg. And it's totally not up to you. How do you know? How can you control the elements? You don't. What you control is the choice to move forward. And if you come back to yourself and say, I shouldn't have made that step, well, based on what? Is it based on, like, I don't believe in blame. That's why my approach to making choices is to explore. What is it? I ask myself, not what do I want to make better, as opposed to what do I really want to explore? What is an area I want to venture into? And that makes life more enjoyable. I'm kind of exploring this concept of joy, and the best way I could explain it is when I was a young kid, that 8-year-old that you spoke about. One of the things that I experienced, we didn't have that much money, so for me, a Mars bar was like something I could experience once every 2 months. So when we went to friends of my parents, and I would go, and they had a lot of money, so I would go in, and their kitchen was stacked with Pepsi, and they had boxes of Snickers and Mars. And as an 8-year-old, I never thought, like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? It wouldn't be nice to have money. I didn't have the concept of money even. All I knew is, what would it be like? I could think about, what would it be like to have access to endless amount of Mars, chocolate.
Yeah.
It was an idea of what would that be like, what the experience would be like. So, and when I experienced that as an older me, when I first went to Dubai and I had access to everything, I was paid $2,000 per month, which was more like 4 times more than what I've ever made, or 2 times more than I've ever made at the highest level. I had access to everything. And Dubai, because in Syria we didn't have none of, let's say, Syria was opening up at the early 2000s, but nothing like what was in Dubai. In Dubai, I could go to 2 movies every day. I could, there were malls everywhere, and all of the Western, restaurants and everything. So I had access to everything. And it was not, I'd never thought, like, oh my God, I have money and I'm privileged. I didn't think about that. It's like, oh my God, it's so nice to experience. This is an interesting experience. So I was more looking for experiences like the 8-year-old. That was what joy was. It's the experience of something new. And that purity of experience is what I refer joy to.
Yeah,
It's not
love it.
in our heads. It's
Yeah.
not like, oh my God, I have this money, so I should be happy. No, it's a moment of joy and pleasure that you can't really explain.
Correct. Love it. Love it. I just loved our conversation. Thank you, Hussein, for the honesty and just the openness that that this conversation had. I think I felt that warmth that from Canada to Melbourne, I could sense that warmth. To our listeners who are still here and have spent an hour understanding the choice of going this path, go live wilder. Rest is up to life, but you make the shot because that's what's important. And if you like this episode, then make the choice of clicking on the subscribe button or sending this to someone who you feel needs to have this idea of making these choices. Hussein, I don't know where our journeys will take us, but maybe there'll be a day when we will be in the same room together physically and have more conversations. Looking forward to that coffee, and thank you for the time that you spent with us today.
Thank you for having me. This was such a joy. I can't believe it's been an hour.
It's been an hour. Yeah,
Oh my God,
love
this
it.
is so joyful. And you're in Melbourne, which is the twin city of Vancouver, right? We're all competing on the most livable city. So I'm definitely one of the cities I want to visit. So I look forward for that coffee.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. To everyone, go make a choice. Go be your wild self. Thank you so much. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Ignite Neurons podcast. If you found value in this, here's what I recommend. Take out a paper or a diary and just put down one actionable, one thing that you can change about your life because you listen to this podcast. I'd really appreciate if you could share that in the comments below because I'd love to see how it's impacting you or not. If you're on YouTube and watching this, then like, share, and subscribe, and please make this wisdom go viral. And if you're someone who loves your podcast on the go, then Spotify and Apple Podcasts are your go-to places, or wherever you're listening to this, just like, share it with a friend, and leave a comment because I'd love to engage, love to have a conversation with you. Until next time, till we meet again, keep those neurons ignited, stay curious, keep learning, be someone who embraces a growth mindset, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.